Russia's pushing disinformation in media, mostly in the United States today, also in Europe, that they win this war, that they are winning. But it's not true. They have losses, more than 1 million people, 1,300,000. Yes, that's it. So and their economy is decreasing.
Ёбаный в рот. Ёбаный в рот. Бля. Твою мать, сука, нахуй. Блядь. Ебать. Нахуй, блядь.
Пизда, блядь, ебаный в рот. Охуеть.
The meeting with Vladimir Putin is canceled or put on hold. Do you know what happened there, and does that affect your decision whether or not to send tomahawks?
No, I don't want to have a wasted meeting. I don't want to have a waste of time. So I'll see what happens. But we did all of these great deals, great peace deals. They're all peace deals, agreements, solid agreements, every one of them. But this one, and I said, go to the line of battle. The battlefield lines, and you pull back and you go home, and everybody takes some time off, because you got two countries that are killing each other. You got two countries that are losing 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers a week. So we'll see what happens. It's we haven't made a determination.
Well, hello, that's me again, and I am a little bit late today because I spent the last 2 hours fighting the idiotic issues with the Windows 11 on my latest laptop, so I'm coming up from my standard setup, and so, yeah, I will try to fix it. Probably by today, but so far no luck, and this is the thing which refuses completely to recognize the microphone and outside camera, despite the fact that it's a really advanced laptop. But what have you, it's the issue with all of those programmers and IT people who make your life miserable by applying all kinds of the unnecessary things. But it is what it is. So, however, you can see yourself in the beginning how delusional the guy is. And yeah, he repeats this thing about the, I don't know, he could have gone probably 2.5 million people, Russians killed, or losses, and maybe 5 million. And yeah, there are many people in Europe who believe this. And this is a very interesting situation, because yesterday I spoke, by the way, on the same laptop, which is giving me hard time, with people from national interest, and this I will not tell you who, when you will see yourself when it pops up on my blog once the thing is basically published, and then I can say what was going on. But I can tell you one thing: people who are acquainted with the Pentagon's going and how those defense intelligence agencies, or which obviously applies to CIA, but granted that Defense Intelligence Agency has the cadre officers, military officers who understand things, or supposed to, that mostly what this intel comes from in the United States, and Pentagon especially, is from Ukraine. And that tells you everything you need to know about the professional level of the American military, and people who actually draw their conclusions from those reports and so-called intel which is presented to them. And yeah, they will believe that about 10 million Russians dead, that Russian economy is collapsing, that everything is just stopping there. And when you have that such kind of the intel, there is no surprise then that the United States cannot win a single war, apart from the fact that it produced not really any serious military leader of any kind operational level. Forget about strategic one. And so we can go today and start with the issue of the losses, because obviously I need to address the situation with Mr. Zelensky. And as you can see yourself, it was yesterday. You can see yourself, again, around 1500 every day, same old, same old. But why I singled out and highlighted in yellow things like planes, 667 of the combat aircraft have been downed by Russians. 633 surface-to-air missile complexes, including all those IRIS-T, and NASAMS, Patriot, PAC-3s, what have you, have been annihilated, and 283 helicopters. I will explain it down the road here in a few minutes, but let's start with the thing which we cannot ignore. And people talk about the situation with Hungary and why, suddenly this is postponed. I want to only give you the explanation by Mr. Ryabkov, and first deputy foreign minister of Russia, yesterday, when he stated, you cannot postpone something which hasn't been arranged. And that is simple as that. The fact is that they talk about Hungary, and suddenly Hungary is being, its refineries are being blown up by terrorists. What kind of terrorists? Oh, I don't know. You know what? My guess as good as yours. So, but point is that Europe is. In panic, in complete disarray, in terms of what could have come out if this meeting continues, the preparation for this meeting continue. But here is the number of the statements which we probably have to pay attention to. And one of them is, of course, Mr. Trump, which you saw in the beginning. But apart from what is happening on the front line, as you can see yourself, this is Pokrovsk, right? Look at this. This is yesterday. So as I already can tell you that it is a lag of about 3 days, but Russians are pretty much controlling most of the city. And as you can see yourself, beautiful, beautiful cauldron is being created there. How many brigades will be annihilated there, I don't know. But it is all situation which is going around and revolves around, if you wish, around this whole meeting, and we have some hysterical statements by people like Mr. Sikorsky. Mr. Sikorsky is known that he admitted that he was giving a blowjob to the United States. I'm not kidding you. You can look it up. He definitely is good at fellatio. And so, Mr. Lavrov states that when Mr. Sikorsky, that say Poland appears willing to engage in acts of terrorism by indicating that it would intercept a plane carrying Russian President Vladimir Putin, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Tuesday. The top Russian diplomat was referring to remarks made earlier in the day by Polish Foreign Minister Radoslaw Sikorski, who said Warsaw cannot guarantee that it would not intercept a Russian government plane if Putin were to fly through Polish airspace en route to Hungary for a planned summit with US President Donald Trump. Sikorsky claimed that such action could be ordered by a court. Well, if Mr. Sikorsky cannot guarantee, if to imagine this idiotic idea that Russians will fly through Poland, well then in this case Russia cannot guarantee the existence of Poland. And including Mr. Sikorsky, his pardon my French, bad crazy wife and Applebaum and everything they treasure, because this is how it's called casus belli. And Russians probably had it with those imbeciles from Warsaw, and that's what Mr. Lavrov correctly defines it as a terrorism, pure and simple. But then again, the hysteria is absolutely, horrendous, and then we have, Reuters, oh my God, we are so into this that we can tell you, as you say, exclusive. Russia reiterates previous Ukraine peace terms to US in private communique. sources say? Well, sources, what sources? Russians continue to repeat it non-stop from all kinds of sources, such as Mr. Putin, Mr. Lavrov, Mr. Medvedev, and if those people in Reuters and all those, one-cell organisms which operate through the legacy media do not understand this, I don't know how to explain it to them. They need story. They need to create this whole, white noise, hysteria, something which sells something to a bunch of the, scared and sometimes brainwashed hoi polloi for those creeps, from media who are rung lower than prostitutes to exist. They need to, feed themselves. They love their golfs and some of them love their sports cars. And so they say Russia reiterated its previous terms for reaching a peace deal with Ukraine in a private communique sent to US over the weekend known as a non-paper, according to 2 US officials and a person familiar with situation. I don't know how stupid, they are stupid, okay, apart from the fact that those people, they absolutely don't have any kind of the professional honor or integrity, a human integrity too, and so when you look at that, I mean, Russians are not going to change any conditions for resolution. Mr. Lavrov reiterated again yesterday that it's all about addressing, root causes. What are root causes? Well, root causes are very simple there, as we know. There will be no NATO on the borders of Russia, or there will be no Ukraine left whatsoever. There will be no Ukraine in NATO, and so the rest of it, the Nazification and the militarization continues as we already discussed here. So, and when we look at this whole basically proceedings, and especially the strange statements from the American side, again, it wasn't arranged yet. That's the point. And the fact that obviously somebody has to say, and yeah, we're not going to be doing this for now at least. Yes, because what can possibly Mr. Trump bring to the table other than the same old now with Mr. Zelensky telling everybody that he just bought 150 Gripens from Sweden, which Sweden doesn't have those. But again, you see, these are the news. They say that they signed the contract. No, they didn't sign the contract. They signed the protocol of intentions to buy at some future time, 150 Gripens, not that it will help them. And that gets us, after we kind of look at what is happening, and of course, Hungary has been hit by the terrorist acts, and they need to prepare that, especially if in the end they will decide to meet in Budapest, that will continue. This is what expecting Europe. The terrorism could be British by MI6, it could be obviously Ukrainian, it could be Polish, who knows? I mean, we don't know. There are a bunch of crazies running around in Europe right now, ready to commit all kinds of the war crimes. Well, they already committed, and they are hell-bent on defeating Russia, obviously, when they have no, ways or resources to do it. Despite the fact that, yes, Russian Foreign Service intelligence, SVR, already presented, Mr. Narishkin, a couple days ago, presented the report that, yeah, they are trying to whip up those, European sheeple into the Drang Osten. Next one, to fight Russia, to create all those, put resources into it. Obviously, it's true. That's their plan. The problem is that none of them, including the European part of NATO, are utterly incompetent, and the only thing they are capable of, as I already stated, is primarily terrorist acts, killing civilians. In terms of fighting real war, not so much. As you can see yourself, for example, Russians already say that, how to put it politely, I don't know, it just, it goes on, and those people do not understand the message that actually their today's news about what is happening on the line of the combat contact, which of course, as you might expect, is the main driver behind all proceedings globally today. And they say that in the Kiev region, the headquarters bunker of NATO officers was destroyed, together with those NATO officers and a bunch of the, those Ukrainian people who still think that somehow NATO can help. It cannot. And as Sergei Lebedev, coordinator of the Nikolaev on the ground, told RIA News that at night Ukrainian media also reported explosions in Zaporizhia, Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava, Cherkasy, Odessa, and Sumy. And as you can see yourself in the beginning of the video, there's all kinds of things being, basically destroyed in Ukraine, and eventually Ukraine will cease to have any normal grid and of course power generating facilities. And so they talk about that there is evidence of the destruction of the staff bunker along with officers including from countries of NATO. He said, yes, there were a huge number of the emergency vehicles, which usually happens when Russians, as you know, Russians all love to kill, and destroy kindergartens, opera houses, and things of this nature. That's not Russians. That's what NATO does. But that's what is happening there. And the reason in the end, putting aside this this white noise, this hysteria, this terrorism against Hungary now, and Mr. Sikorsky, the same Mr. Sikorsky, saying that he would love to see the oil pipeline Druzhba to be blown up. Well, there you go. You're actually state terrorist guy. So, but I singled out and highlighted those things about the aircraft and especially surface-to-air missiles for a reason. Because in the end, it's a primarily military channel and military strategic channel, albeit, of course, I speak about the political issues surrounding especially special military operation. But it's all about SEAD. SEAD means suppression of the enemy air defense. That's how it's called, SEAD. And what I see is happening with the SEAD thing is basically panic. And both, you have to understand that for some reason, United States Air Force considers itself the specialist in the SEAD, which it is not, albeit they love to write all kinds of the field manuals, if you wish, or whatever is applied. I don't remember the abbreviations of those of all documents. But let me remind you why I bring this up. Because obviously when Mr. Narishkin spoke about SVR, the director of the SVR, Foreign Intelligence Service of Russia, he stated that they are preparing. The only thing they can rely upon, considering the fact of the extreme backwardness and of the ground forces or any ground forces in Europe, and extreme backwardness of their general staff or staffs, what have you, and extremely low educational and operational level of their officers across the board practically. So what do they have? They have in mind all those good old things about air-land battle, because that's the only thing Pentagon, for example, knows. They always, produce this air-land battle and they name it different things, but it is all same old thing, which is based entirely on the air power. And of course, the part of the deploying air power, to penetrating and all these things, and those wild weasel operations and all that, it is all about suppressing enemy air defense, which brings us to the point of even considering if the United States somehow gets involved and wants to help Europeans fight conventionally Russia, which of course will end up catastrophe for the European population and those people who will be recruited or, basically kidnapped from the street and turned into the cannon fodder. But here is what is important. So already in 2021, and this is important, the U.S. Navy U.S. Naval Institute proceedings, they talk about they were thinking SEAD for A2AD, anti-access area denial operations, which for some reason Pentagon thinks that it can overcome, but And so in April 2021, a respectable publication of the U.S. Naval Institute proceedings talks about rethinking SEAD for A2AD. And SEAD is, I want to reiterate that it's suppression of the enemy air defense. And here what he talks this is before the start of the special military operation. And here is a very interesting point he makes here, that the ability of the US military to penetrate and dominate contested airspace, one of its hallmarks for many decades. It is in question. He admits that it is in question, and it was even before the special military operation. And the question is that, well, its hallmark, if you look attentively at the American history of what is called to dominate airspace, United States didn't dominate space during Korea War, especially when they were flying against the, let's say, 64th Corps commanded by General Kojodup in Korea. Then, of course, there was Vietnam, where the United States lost more than 10,000 aircraft, 2,500 of them, obviously, the fixed wing, the other the 7,500 were helicopters, rotary wing, and so it wasn't really domination, except for the, obviously, in 1990s, beating the crap out of the non-existent air defense of Saddam Hussein, and then, of course, encountering some very unpleasant surprises with also backward and obsolete air defense of Serbia, little Serbia, which still kind of bloodied nose a little bit for the US Air Force. And so he talks about that Russia and China continuous improvement in electronic warfare and area denial systems are serious obstacles to US power projection. I have news, obviously. Since 2021, we have 4 years which passed by, more than that, and it's actually not obstacle. It makes it impossible, and I will explain to you why impossible. And so he talks about, obviously, those very interesting words like in terms like the Naval Integrated Fire Control Counter-Air model integrates high-performance aircraft into the Joint Strike System with stealth-capable sensor craft such as F-35B and blah, 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 blah. And this is all about penetrating and dominating airspace while trying to, well, actually insert the ground troops, which are supposed to fight all those enemies. The problem with all this issue is, of course, that here I just showed you the statistics about the Russians actually dealing with the combat aircraft and telling you that, the losses of the God forbid, NATO aircraft, if they decide to do anything about Russian air defense, if we talk about the war in Europe, they're going to be much higher than those of Ukraine. And that means what? Not just the loss of the combat aircraft. That means losses of the personnel and, of course, the combat pilots. Apart from the fact that, these airfields will be destroyed. So, but yes, they still think in terms of this, suppression of the enemy air defense, and they still believe that somehow it remains the core of the operational art, if you wish, and strategic planning of NATO. It is all false. And I know for sure it has been corroborated by many sources that, when you have the intelligence on, for example, operation of Russian air defense on Russia losses, 5 million, 7 million, doesn't matter. Or that, obviously, air defense of Ukraine shoots down everything, and then of course you have all those fanboys from all kinds of the pseudo-military publications and masturbatory websites about basically military technology. They cannot understand that, and when they say that, there's nowhere Russian Air Force to be seen. But then, of course, you see the guys from Ukraine just standing in awe, seeing how Su-34s fly over the Ukrainian territory pretty much at will, and then, of course, launch those horrifying weapons ranging from all kinds of the missiles, Kinzhals, Su-34s, by the way, if nobody knows, they are capable of launching Kinzhals, and then, of course, the latest fabs, with the UMPK module, which are flying now to 200-kilometer range. And those are just gliding bombs. So you see, things are not exactly how they planned, and especially about this suppression of enemy air defense. And if we are take a look at, for example, what there are, it's the irregular warfare initiative. There, all kinds of the as I already stated, all those veterans, all those, NATO guys speak about how, lessons from the front lines, Ukrainian SEAD operations and their implications for Western special operation forces. Well, I have news about Ukrainian SEAD operations, and I will explain it in a second, that it's written in February 6, 2025. It's written by, cadre officers, which for some reason begin to extract lessons again, as has been stated already by the so-called intel, which Ukrainians actually BS the US military. And so they talk about that Ukrainian SEAD operations during Russian-Ukrainian war have demonstrated a wealth of wisdom. No, they didn't. And obviously what the United States, the cool aid, US Army, Air Force and Navy drink from this is just obviously it's BS, okay? Let's put it this way. And so they talk that in future conflicts against advanced adversary air defenses, US and NATO special operation forces are again being called to serve as key component with the joint targeting cycle by embracing lessons from Ukraine, including the value of stand-in capabilities, targeting critical nodes, and embracing rapid technology adaptability, blah, 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 classic buzzwords, and some of them do not make any tactical, operational, or whatever strategic sense. And so, people who write this and people who embrace, so to speak, lessons from Ukraine, these are the same people who will lose yet another war, and they will be, if they will be flying the combat aircraft or believe that they have that strategic vision, I have news for them. They are amateurs when compared to what they may face. And so, Daniel Droid Sullivan is a U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel and Combat Systems Officer. He's an air power strategist. I don't think there are real good strategists in the United States, period, military. I mean, none. So the other guy, yes, Captain, Force Captain, currently serving as an instructor in the Military Strategic Studies Department of the U.S. Air Force Academy. And then there's Ryan N. Y. Neely is a Senior Master Sergeant and Combat Controller. Why do they talk about these lessons? And especially when the guys, when you say, oh my God, they're from the US Air Force Academy and the strategists and all that. So what are they supposed to come up with? Well, they come up with, they cannot come up with anything because they cannot suppress anything. And as I already stated, even in 1980 guys, 45 years ago, the Soviet air defense was capable to sustain, mitigate, and basically repulse the massive airspace strike against actually Russia's Soviet Union at that time, Central Industrial Region. Things changed since then. And guess what? You might remember at some point of time Ukrainians were spreading, it did happen, make no mistake, they somehow got S-400. It was in the in Krasnodar Krai, and it was burned. It was hit by something. Of course, they started to talk about it. It was hit by whatever Scalp, whatever Storm Shadow, or High, whatever, Reality was, as it was later with the Operation Pautina, so-called WEB, it was done by the sabotage group of the, Armed Forces of Ukraine, and they launched a drone against the complex which wasn't even active, and it hit it. So, and as you see, know yourself, there are a number of the sabotage groups operating within Russia, and that is what those guys from US Force Academy and air power strategists talk about, that in the end, you have to use the special forces. You know why? Because no matter the number of the aircraft which will be launched, if it will be launched, for example, in the future conflict which Europeans prepare themselves to, or at least they say so, the issue will be very, very simple. Most of them will be destroyed. And after that, they will have no airfields to return to. And that's the SEAD. No American pilot knows about anything. It's the same like any no American general or American officer, serving officer, understand what is happening around them in terms of the special military operation. It's absolutely outside the scope and grasp of all those tactical and operational manuals which United States and especially European air forces, navies, and what have you issue. As the result, they are still stuck in this vicious circle of the 1990s ideas about war, and they believe that they can change something or the outcome. And here is the issue. Although we love the explosions, we love, I mean, not that I love it, I hate them actually, but many do, when I say we, I mean, us, mortal, mere mortals, hoi polloi. And they love that, but they don't understand. Operational level doesn't operate in this paradigm. They are interested in terms of explosions and all kinds of things, just to see how the statistics lines up and what kind of the models, combat models they use on daily basis, how they plan operations. And yes, as my good friend Colonel Truhan says correctly, once some serious battles start, for example, on the ground, there are many operational levels, officers, and especially commanders of brigades or divisions, who understand there are guys who will be killed there, and they're literally ready to crawl on the walls from understanding of this issue and smoke like 5 packs of cigarettes a day. But this is their reality. But operationally, they think as operational people. They are not interested in explosions and things of this nature. They are interested in the statistics of the operation they conduct and they command. This is the basically reality they have to face when you talk about the SEAD and models of SEAD, suppression of the enemy air defense. Any model which they have today in Pentagon or where have you, it has to be thrown out. It doesn't describe anything which they can possibly encounter, let alone Europeans without United States. And that's what is this whole business about. Removing United States, which United States probably wants to, as Steve Bannon says, that even Trump says that, he called the Zelensky, for example, a bastard, but it takes a lot of work. Meanwhile, Russians did, what Russians do mostly, it's just, they basically conducted the strategic training of their strategic forces. That is why, for example, Special Detachment Russia, which was flying in a very interesting way, they basically took off number of the aircraft, which are command and control aircraft during the, God forbids, nuclear exchange. And of course, one of the good old Delta IV submarines launched, the ballistic missile Sineva yesterday, and evidently this training was very good, and basically confirmed the readiness of Russia and Russian armed forces to do anything to basically wipe out anybody who really thinks about fighting Russia. But in conclusion, I want to say that, there are all kinds of bizarre things happening, but look at this. As we talk about Pokrovsk, here is the... that's another thing. It was yesterday. Look at this. There's some, as you can see yourself, the muscle of Ukrainians, and that's Pokrovsk, which is Krasnoarmeysk now, operational axis, 22 tanks, never passed, never passed, damn, Katsabs, damn Ruskies, and the sky is filled with the UAVs, and out of 22 tanks of the 155th Brigade, which were going for the breakthrough, only 9 remained, and glory to armed forces of Ukraine. So, and the guy writes here, yes, it's from the game Armor 3. So, that's the basically type of things which are, that's the intel. That's the intel they get to Pentagon. And that's how American generals and those operational guys and European also, plan their operations against Russia. And I'm not basically embellishing it or what have you. It's just the way it is. That's how it actually being delivered to all those, eggheads who plan operations. And what can I say? They chose it, and they have to live with it. So this is everything I want. Well, not everything. It's just unbelievably dense today. I wanted to tell you today, but as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. So have the nice rest of the week, and I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.